very pleasant good morning, everybody. Great to be with you on another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mr. Romance, one Mike Lubitz. Happy to have you guys along for the ride. How'd you survive? You had it already prearranged and preordained that you were going to get out of Valentine's Day unscathed. I, however, the prince of procrastination, found myself in a bit of a jackpot and a bit of a dilemma yesterday, which was kind of interesting. I hope it was okay for everybody else out there, because it really is. It's an emotional bloodbath. Valentine's Day. It's probably one of the most heinous holidays ever created by the Hallmark people, because there's really, it's the old Allman Brothers song. There's no way out, my man. No way out. Well, that was one way out, but in this case, there's literally no way out. Now, I will say this, and we originate from South Florida. I've been living here for 43 years. I want to say that I got here in 1981. So 43 years, Lubie, here in South Florida. You, of course, at about 41 years of age, have lived here your entire life.
Yes.
So some of the things that I found a little bit surprising, probably, well, some of them might have been out of vogue by the time you were cognizant of what was going on out there in the real world. But one of the things that amazed me when I first moved to South Florida was the oddball array of things that were being sold on street corners. Now, in modern times, it's not uncommon for somebody in one of the more uppity areas like Boca Raton, Florida, or maybe Worth Avenue there in Palm Beach. You stop at a red light and you might be able to get a Botox injection. Somebody runs out to the car there, and they got a sign, Botox. It's not even like spare change anymore. It's Botox, and they'll administer it right there. You got the convertible Mercedes. Beautiful young lady says, yeah, shoot one right here. I got a wrinkle I think I saw this morning developing. But back in the day, when I was in Dade County, which has become kind of a Latin melting pot now. Dade County, we live in Broward County, which is just north of there, and seemed to be a little bit of a migration north of a certain demographic of people. But in the meantime, there's been a huge influx of people from all areas of Latin America, and it's changed the composition of what was Dade County, which was commonly known as Miami at that time. And now they just grouped the whole area together and call it South Florida under one big umbrella. But I can assure you there are radical differences. Once you cross the county line, all of a sudden you feel like, you're in some wild jungle of an area there. And it was very unique. I kind of enjoyed that Latin flavor. But what I never understood was the compelling need to buy limes. What was there something in limes that we were unaware of? Was like Louis Pasteur, about to discover that the lime juice could somehow cure everything that ailed you? Because I always found it amazing that you'd stop at a red light and then there'd be any number of people circulating. They would be selling flowers. They'd be selling these things called churros, which is like a baked good that is very popular with people from Cuba and other Latin American countries. I wasn't really that familiar with them, tell you the truth. They're not all that great, but nonetheless, you could buy a bunch right there in the street corner. And then they would have these limes that were partially skinned. Now, what was the reason for that, Lubie? Do you have any idea? They would actually have shaved off some of the skin of these limes. And I kept wondering for the first few years I was here, what is it? All of a sudden it hits you when you're at a red light. You're stopped there at a traffic light. Normally you're just cursing and swearing because you'd like to get to your destination. But instead you think, fuck, I need some limes. I'm going to bake a key lime pie. Just a weird assortment of shit is being sold on the street corners of Miami and South Florida at all times, except for yesterday, the one time that you need it. Now, typically, if you take, say, a 10-mile drive here in South Florida, you'll come across at least a half a dozen people that are selling flowers out of a little bucket at the exits and off-ramps of any highway, whether you're on the Turnpike, I-95, 826, any of the roads that are traditionally blocked and are going to have you caught up in very irritating traffic problems for hours on end. And it's the one salvation. You start thinking, well, you know what? Maybe I'll bring some flowers home to the wife. And they're usually like $5 a dozen. All right. So I'm thinking yesterday, geez, even if they juiced the price to $10, this would be the way to go. This was going to get me out of my Valentine's Day jackpot where I had nothing. Yeah. Nothing. We weren't going to go out to dinner. We weren't going to, have any kind of romantic session here at home. It was strictly going to be. Yeah, go ahead, Louie.
Oh, it's a Wednesday. Unless you're in a new relationship, you usually are. Most people, if they do Valentine's, they'll go, we'll do something during the weekend. It's a Wednesday, so
Yeah,
even people like you get 3 extra days.
you would think. Well, see, I have lowered the bar of expectation when it comes to any element of romance in my relationship right now with the Mustang. That she would naturally anticipate nothing. That Valentine's Day would consist of, hey, what do we got for dinner? There's nothing in the fridge, and that would be it. Well, thank you for being so caring and so emotionally involved. But I ended up getting creamed yesterday at the local supermarket because, wow, I mean, they may as well just have all of the tellers with a ski mask and a gun as you're checking out.
Yep.
You buy a dozen roses that are normally like $14, $22 yesterday, Libby, $22. Now, they did look good.
Oh, God.
Yeah, they did look good, but a bit of a ripoff, no? So I was happy to survive that. And then I was looking forward to a very enjoyable day. Just seldom are we lacking. I mean, it may not seem this way. It may seem laughable, and I'm going to say this, Luby, especially to you, who have been working with me for almost 15 years now. That normally, I start out any program I'm doing with, I guess this is laughable. I'm almost bursting out in laughter here. It's going to be hard to hold it back. Some idea of where we're going. There's some kind of structured plan that we're going to start somewhere and hopefully end up with some kind of definitive conclusion that you can take away and say, wow, that guy really knows his sports. That was interesting. So, and I was very happy to be transitioning away from football. After a while, I mean, it's paralysis by analysis, literally. I mean, how many times can you hear somebody like Louis Riddick go off about how, well, the front office is the key. Okay, Lou, we know you are a general manager or player personnel guy somewhere. You don't have to constantly be harping on that. Or you hear like Mike Tannenbaum, who personally was responsible for the complete destruction and demise of 2 different franchises. New York Jets, he buried them, right? They've never been the same since Tannenbaum left. And, of course, the Miami Dolphins took them, at least 10 years to recover from the so-called Tannenbaum era. So you hear these guys go off and they're pontificating about football and the post-game analysis on the Super Bowl. I'm okay with having enough of that. I was looking very much forward to transitioning into some new things here, as evidenced by the fact that we're not that far away from March fucking Madness, for that matter. And I've watched very little college basketball, although I did see this upset, Syracuse over North Carolina, which we touched on the program briefly yesterday, as we lamented the fact that we were going to have to suffer through Valentine's Day. And you talk about a no-win situation. It's not even a push on Valentine's Day in most cases. So you're going to get spanked.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of local teams that were in action. We also do a local show here in South Florida. You can catch that on South Florida Live. That's our own personal YouTube channel, which we distributed on other platforms as well. And I'm thinking, all right, a good day for the locals here. You had the Miami Heat in action, which I think, Luby, did we not suggest go ahead and take the 3 points with the Heat yesterday? Did we do that on this program? I think we did.
I don't know if we did, but it would have been a good idea. Good for you. If you did, I might have missed that.
I saw that line. I mean, you're looking at a completely depleted Philadelphia 76er team. How close are the 76ers to being what they're capable of being without Joel Embiid in the lineup? Not very close.
No, I mean, they've added Buddy Hield, and he actually was a really good acquisition, but he's not replacing Embiid, who was on course to be a top 3 MVP candidate again.
Well, and especially with the Heat, I mean, they have Bam Adebayo, a bona fide and, deserving all-star, having a great year this year all the way around. But Bam Adebayo is not necessarily the counter to Joel Embiid if you're going to put pressure on the Miami Heat on the inside. And so the Heat also very much disrupted in their track to try and get back into a position of command where they can be a big factor in the postseason. They're playing without Jimmy Butler, who's got some personal issues dealing with. There was a death in his family, so he's got an team-approved leave of absence there. They had Rozier, who they acquired, and this was their big move around the trade deadline, Terrence Rozier, who's slowly but surely evolving as a key component of the Heat rotation, and he's out with an injury. He suffered a leg injury a couple of games back. They had Richardson, who is an excellent guy, component off the bench, also out in this ball game. They played this guy Jovic, who they've had under wraps for a while, right? You like this kid, don't you? Showed some signs in preseason games, but really has rarely been able to dust himself off after getting off the bench. He comes in against Milwaukee and has a 24-point night. Doesn't even sniff the court much in the ball game last night against the 76ers. And the Heat managed to prevail in this ball game. They win the game. I think the final margin was 5 points.
Yes.
But they were getting 3 also. So we gave you a winning bet. I was very happy about that. Florida Panthers all of a sudden are on fire. They have been for some time. And they now have won 9 straight road games, just three
Oh,
off the
wow.
record.
Yeah,
Three
they're
off
top
the record in the
three,
NHL. Yeah, they
top three
knocked
in
off the
all of
Pittsburgh.
hockey. I think
What's
either
that?
the second most points or the third most points in all of hockey.
Might have the fifth best record overall, but nonetheless, they've been on the rise. They had some injuries early in the season, and they seem to be rounding into perfect form here. They annihilate the Pittsburgh Penguins in a 4-goal second period last night, and so they walk away with a 5-2 victory, 9 in a row on the road, and now are favored by FanDuel and DraftKings to win the Eastern Conference. So that was a big development. Boston was off to such a hot start, you thought nobody was ever going to catch them, and they had reasons to try to avenge what was a very disappointing loss to the very same aforementioned Florida Panthers in the postseason last year after having a record-setting point season, the Boston Bruins, and all of a sudden there are the Panthers breathing right down their necks. I think they might be 2 points behind in the standings, the Boston Bruins, and now favored at 4-1 to win the Eastern Conference, and might not be a bad play. Also was trying to follow, get into a little college basketball. Unfortunately, our good friend Jim Larinaga, the head coach at the University of Miami, not having a repeat season of what looked to be a very possible return to at least a deep run into the NCAA tournament. They were a Final Four team last year. They got shellacked by Clemson last night, 75-60. So there was a lot of stuff to follow on the local front. You had baseball cranking up. And of course, always interest there, especially since I'm a subscriber to the New York Post. I actually get the paper delivered. And as I said, I mean, I think there were 2 newspaper deliveries in the entire area that I live in, and that is Lauderdale by the Sea, Florida. And I can hear it. I know the paper came because I hear it thwack against the door. It's one of those things where, maybe you had a paper round as a kid, and there was one customer that you absolutely couldn't stand because they never gave you a Christmas tip, nothing. And so, you would just fire that paper against the door and hope to break something. And so I get that thud. Now, I have no problem. I don't even know who the person is who delivers because I've never seen them. I only get that Christmas card, that you get with any kind of subscription. How much should you give the newspaper delivery person? I doubt many people can answer this question.
I was going to say, I've never gotten a paper. My dad always, I think my dad did up until like 5 years ago. I don't know if they did tips. What do you I don't know. That's a good question. This day and age.
It's not a very popular job. And as the paper hits my door, the only thing I can hear, and it always tips me off that the paper's here and it's time to get up and have a bowel movement because, I can't function without a newspaper in front of me. And sure enough, as soon as that paper hits the door, I hear a lot of cursing in Spanish, right? I know just enough Spanish swearing from working in kitchens in California and restaurants, and also, of course, going to the Olympic Auditorium, 18th and Grand, all those many years. And you can even hear the derisive Mexican whistle as the paper is being delivered. I'm glad I was able to do that here without whiffing on him. Which essentially means do something very vulgar to your mother. That's... I think it was Chingala Madre was, what kind of, was the whistling version of. Not a pretty thing. I don't think you need the translation. You can tell that it's probably something that could only fly on No Filter and maybe Caffeine TV, which is why we love the format so much. You got Caitlin Clark, and she's going for the all-time NCAA women's basketball scoring record. Kelsey Plum of the Las Vegas Aces. I think she was at Washington State. Is that right? Or Washington? One of those Washington schools. Anyway, when she set the all-time mark. And Caitlin Clark has become like the Pete Maravich of women's college basketball. Maybe you would have to say, of all the players that you've seen that played women's college basketball, that there have been many good ones, just not enough to make me sustain my interest in the game. But nonetheless, she's got to be, top 5 all-time in terms of entertaining players to watch on the women's basketball scene.
The way she scores, it's ridiculous. Yeah, Plum went to Washington, UW.
Not bad. I mean, I was within the ballpark there with Washington State. I don't know why I wanted to put a state on that. Anyway, so she's going for the record tonight against Michigan with her Iowa Hawkeye team that was ranked 4th in the country and was defeated at Nebraska in their last ball game. Clark was stopped in the 4th quarter. Otherwise, she might have eclipsed the record then if she had her typical performance. But she's like 7 points away. Our good friend Jim Sarney, who tracks these sort of things, obsessed with women's college sports and women's sports in general, wanted us to talk more figure skating on this show. wanted us to try and get Tara Lipinski on for an interview. And I'm thinking, Jim, you know what? It's not exactly mainstream right now. Why don't I just dig up Dick fucking Button while you're at it and have a conversation about it? Then we can talk about Tanya Harding and that Sean Eckert incident with Nancy Kerrigan. Why me? It was about the only interesting thing that's happened in skating in the last 50 years. But nonetheless, I mean, it's a big accomplishment. And tickets for this are going for courtside tickets for this Caitlin Clark, Michigan encounter. Supposedly upwards of 13 grand, Lubie. 13 grand. That's pretty incredible. Tiger's returning to the Genesis. He's going to play a tournament. He's the host of the tournament, so I guess that contributed to his desire to be a competitor there. But that's at the Riviera Country Club, always a great event in Los Angeles. So many things happening, and yet, and this is why it's so hard to focus on anything anymore, because what is the big news of the day? Now we in South Florida, of course, Valentine's Day, unfortunately, this past one yesterday commemorated 6 years since the horrible school shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I remember being on the air, and it's always tough being in the sports business when you're on the air following some kind of tragedy of that magnitude, especially if it happens in your own backyard. 17 people were killed in that incident, and I believe another 17 were wounded. There was a lot of controversy about the way the whole affair was handled, and everybody's pointing fingers in different directions. And then we have this happen yesterday. Do you realize this? I think the number was 46. Here we are in the middle of February of 2024, Lubie. I find this staggering. There have already been 46 mass shootings in the United States of America this year. Not in its history, this year. And it happened yesterday. Now, it didn't seem like it was the typical thing where some nutbag is able to and enabled to buy a gun or is handed one by his or her parents and goes out there and deliberately tries to mow down a bunch of people, as has happened many, many times, unfortunately. I guess this stemmed from some kind of argument that developed, but it sounded like there was an automatic weapon that went off. You had one person dead, a radio person from Kansas City. This is at the Kansas City Chiefs parade, commemorating the Super Bowl victory and the fact that they've won it 2 in a row. It should be the most hellacious celebration. Here's a city like Kansas City. I mean, what do they have? They lost the Kansas City Omaha Kings. That they have the Royals who have sucked forever now. The Kansas City A's left there for Oakland, where they can't draw flies. It's not exactly like a bastion of great sporting activity. You think they're ever going to get a hockey team in Kansas City? Well, we never thought they were going to get one here. So what do they have? They have Andy Reid, the fat man, and the Chiefs. They have Patrick Mahomes, and they have what would constitute, by any standard of measurement, a modern-day dynasty in the National Football League, having won 3 championships already in the last 5 years and been in a ball game for a 4th one during that period of time. This is tantamount to the accomplishments of the Buffalo Bills, even though they lost all 4 Super Bowls. Just getting there is a hell of a job. And so to have won 3 of them, this should have been the wildest and most sensational of celebrations. And it ends in this mass tragedy. And you have to ask yourself, where the fuck are we at, Lubie? What the hell is going on out there?
And it's literally when we're airing this / recording it, because a lot of people will watch it later. It's the morning. It's 8 o'clock Eastern right now. I get up at really early times because my animals are annoying. And at 7 in the morning, when I was finally, after getting back in bed, getting out of bed, I got in a fight on Twitter about this, because here's my problem with this. Either you want to do something or you don't, right?
Yeah.
I'm sick of the fucking thoughts and prayers, and I'm sick of fucking the mental illness turn, because here's the deal. Thoughts and prayers, the most religious people in the world know thoughts and prayers literally doesn't do anything right now. Maybe if you do believe in a God, someday God will do something. But as we know how God, or if you do believe in God, it doesn't work in right now. Something's getting fixed because of God's magical hands, right? So thoughts and prayers is fucking useless, and I'm fucking sick of it, okay? So don't say it. Just don't say it. Like, if you actually do feel bad for these people, vote for people who want to take action, right?
Yes.
Then the other turn is, okay, it's not the guns, it's mental illness. First of all, who in the world, especially in this country, doesn't agree that we have an issue in how we handle mentally ill? First of all, we incarcerate most of them. So all we do is put them in a place to make them worse. Second, the ones we do try and help, we throw away. My brothers have mental problems. Literally, he wants help. He wants help, and it's taken over a year to try and get some kind of assistance. So don't, and the people who say the mental illness turn, vote for people who constantly ban or vote down bills to help mental illness. So stop. You don't want it to be the guns. You don't want it to be mental illness because you don't want to help the mental illness. You don't care. So just shut the fuck up about it. Either you feel bad and want to do something, or you are a narcissistic fucking scumbag and you don't feel bad. Pick. You can't have it, but you can't say, well, I feel so bad someone died, but I don't want to put more money into helping mentally ill, and I don't want to figure out how to keep guns out of looms.
No legislation on that front. Yeah.
Pick a lane. Like,
I'll never forget Marco Rubio after the Stoneman Douglas shooting, which obviously hit us very close to the heart here, as all of these things should. But nonetheless, as I said, I mean, we knew people that had kids in the school, and it was very difficult that day to go on the air the day after this happened and sit there. I mean, normally we're trying to just evoke some laughter and have people leave the program after watching it and say, hey, that was fun. So tough to transition into presiding over the conversation of something as tragic as that and monumentally tragic as that and devastating to the community. And I mean, I remember Marco Rubio, this insane, I mean, just how this guy gets elected year after year. You could be a MAGA Republican, whatever, but I mean, you're looking at a guy that's a complete schmuck, that's never done anything, that doesn't even bother attending these sessions to put his own vote in. And yet they asked him point blank. They said, hey, Marco, because you're so sympathetic to this particular situation, are you willing to abdicate taking money from the gun lobby so that, at least you're not going out there and helping this whole problem persist?
Exactly. Actively helping.
And he went Ralph Cramden on that. Having. So again, get the fuck out of here. Don't pretend that you actually care, because you don't. All you want to do is continue to be able to be in your position of power and do nothing about situations that are absolutely of a crisis nature and beyond. And the other thing that's laughable is, this whole Second Amendment business, where the Second Amendment was written when people had muskets. Muskets, they're like the NCAA rules. There was a time that where maybe getting some scholarship money really was somewhat justifying, the way the college sports and athletics operated. But it's not the case anymore. They're making billions of dollars as an entertainment business. Should be a separate professional enterprise, and they're very reluctant to embrace this, much to the fault of it's now become a chaotic situation. We were mentioning yesterday that one of our friends, a good, solid college coaching guy, said, "Hey, I can't do this anymore. I have to get a job somewhere else," and he ended up going to the Indianapolis Colts as an assistant. Even though he loved his job that he had with Pittsburgh and Narduzzi. So, I mean, it's a changed landscape. And the landscape here when it comes to gun control and gun laws and gun regulation needs to change along with it. And I think that's what you were about to address here. But I mean, how we could be in the same boat today that we were years and years ago, going back to all of these things that evolved, that got tremendous public attention because of the tragic nature of the incidents. And we're still in the same boat, Lubie. Still in the same boat.
This idea, and it's an idea, it's not a fact, it's not even a theory, it's a stupid idea, that, there's nothing that can be done.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true.
There is something. Yeah. Make some moves.
Guns, you can definitely have stricter background checks. You can definitely keep guns out of the hands of fucking crazy people. And I don't mean crazy people mean. I mean people who shouldn't have guns. I'm crazy. I probably shouldn't have a fucking gun. On top of that, there's ways to help the mentally ill. And here's my point, right? Well, a former president said, well, we just have to accept this. Okay, but other countries don't just accept it. No country has what we have. Not even that they don't have. No country compares what we have in a week they had in like 5 years, okay?
Maybe in their history, yeah.
Magically, they've figured it out. Magically, they give more money to the healthcare of those who are mentally handicapped, mentally ill, which is most of us, actually. Most of us have issues mentally because the world's a shitty, tough place at times. And most of them handle guns differently. So just shut the fuck up. Don't tell me there's no way to curb this. You don't want to. And thank God we're in America. You have a right to want and not want things. But just shut up then. Don't do if only we could do things about this. Yeah. No, you keep voting for people who don't want to do things about this. There's a major difference in not wanting to correct an issue and not giving a shit about an issue.
There you go.
They're different things. Pick. Just those are the things that after these things,
Very
it's not
frustrating.
about
Yeah.
banning gun or don't banning guns. It's either you want to do something or just shh.
What an absolute tragic shame it turned out to be yesterday. At a time where the sporting world was, supposedly going to provide a little ray of sunshine, and as we said, we're going to transition away from this whole thing of having a pigskin for a forehead as we begin every show, and it turned out to be an absolute disaster, and that is a very sad statement about where we're at in the United States of America, Lubie. There you go. Play the anthem, and let's get out of here. People, I mean, it's a shame. Couldn't wait to come on and talk about the many things that are happening in sport today, and yet that's going to linger.
Parade. Like, are you kidding
at a
me?
parade, a celebration. Very sad. You can't go to the movies, you can't go to the store, you can't go to school, you can't even go to a fucking parade. Unbelievable. All right, we don't want to leave you with a bitter thought, but please, people, if the politicians that you're electing don't have something specific they could do about this situation, and trying to find some kind of answers, if they're blasé, if they shrug their shoulders and go, well, I don't know, what can we do about it? Then don't vote for them. Please get these bums, get these pricks out of here, and let's start to make some progress in all directions, and hope that this country turns things around. All right, there you go. That's our political activity for today. I couldn't help but get into that a little bit because to just overlook it is contributing to the problem. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Tomorrow might be a brighter day on the morning briefing. I can assure you. We did give you a winner last night with that Miami Heat +3. It's kind of jumped off the page at me saying, "Hey, they just shellacked the Milwaukee Bucks, where Doc Rivers is now 3-6. Nice move there, getting the doctor to go ahead and coach the team. That's a big step forward." And so they're in total disarray. And the Heat having a season very similar to last year, where they were kind of, what the hell are they during the regular season? And somehow they're 5 games over 500 at this stage. And I don't know that they're going to be a championship factor, but nonetheless, very impressive what they've done the last couple of ball games with a lineup essentially of backups and scrubs and guys who are coming from Sioux Falls, Iowa, or whatever, to come back and play for the Miami Heat. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Sioux Falls in Iowa? I don't know. Where is that? South Dakota? Iowa? Yeah. Is that where their team is? I don't even know. I just I know they come in from the cold and they come to Miami and they can't wait to put the sunscreen on. All right, we'll see you tomorrow on the next edition. We'll wrap up the week with the next edition of the Morning Briefing. For Mike Lubie Lewis, I'm Jeff DeForest. We'll see you next time right here on NoFilter.net.